Alright, a lot of shit's happened since last time. Nothing that I would consider good though. For simplicity, I'll split them into what I would consider 3 distinct developments. 1, the ongoing investigation. 2, weird shit happening with Jeff. 3, the other videos. Here goes nothing. Regarding the investigation, the rabbit hole just keeps getting bigger, and I don't anticipate finding any way out anytime soon. I've been keeping in contact with one of my buddies, Colt, an officer who's been working on this. But the things he's telling me, I can't make sense of them. Apparently the officers that went missing were simply never found. Colt and his team went down the other branch of the tunnel to search, obviously. But what they found made half the guys quit right then and there. They came across a crudely dug hole, maybe 3 meters. I used to live in Canada, metric just makes more sense. In diameter. Supposedly, it appeared so abruptly that he nearly fell in himself. Well, it's pretty obvious what happened, right? But here's where shit starts getting bizarre again. They tried illuminating the thing, but no matter how much and how strong the lights were that they used, it simply wouldn't penetrate the darkness. At one point, they started thinking there was just some kind of black substance staining the ground. But when they tested it by dropping down coins, they went through, and they never made a sound. It was a hole indeed, and one that didn't seem to end. But the insanity-inducing shit didn't end there. Allegedly, there was dusty footprints on the other side, so at least one of them didn't fall in. They created a makeshift path over the hole, attempting to get through. The guy who went over first, their superior, walked for about 5 seconds before freezing. He seemed to be looking at something. Out of nowhere, he flipped his shit and scrambled back to the side they came from. Before they could stop him, he destroyed the path. "That's a dead fucking end," was all that he said before basically sprinting away. Everybody was so stunned by this that they simply followed suit. He was supposed to be giving the orders after all. After that, he demanded a transfer. When that was denied, he simply quit. He never told anybody what he actually saw, and nobody was going down there ever since. However, Colt's been hearing rumors. Supposedly, government agents have been popping in and out of the situation, asking obscure questions. They may have already gone down there. Father and Colt and his team did. But he doesn't know. That's where the investigation stands at the moment. No questions answered, but a fuck ton more needing to be asked. As for Jeff, I have no idea. Implicitly, I knew it had something to do with the shadow figure that I saw. I just didn't want it to. I decided that watching the other videos was the only opportunity that I had to scrape together any kind of answer. But when I went over to his place and prepared to knock, his door was already halfway open. I put my guard up. Moving painfully slow, I grabbed my pistol and made my way inside. I swept the place, preparing myself for anything. But there was nothing. The only place that I couldn't get into was Jeff's bedroom. It was locked. Actually, I think it might have been barricaded shut. I knocked and knocked, all the while calling out and telling him it was me. But he never answered. I knew that he was in there, though. I could hear somebody moving around. It was fruitless, though. I considered simply breaking the door down, but that could have been disastrous. I didn't know where Jeff's mental state was. There was a chance that, doing this, I would get my torso blown off. Nevertheless, the laptop was still open, sitting on the kitchen counter. Here's where the other videos come in. Well, only one of them. You'll see why. I was feeling paranoid as hell, so I made sure that I had my back against the wall and a clear view of every entrance and hallway in front of me. I also didn't let go of my gun after telling myself to calm down and click the next video. Investigation. Just like Train to Oblivion, it started out shaky as hell. It remained frantic, both sights and sounds, for about a minute. When it finally focused, it became obvious that we were in front of what looked like a decrepit apartment building. It panned out, revealing a multitude of police cars, piercing the night with their red and blue lights. But there were also SWAT vans. It also became evident that this was actual film footage, unlike Train to Oblivion. I still don't know how that was possible. The camera turned to face the man in the SWAT gear, who nodded. "It's on there?" Yeah, I think so." The man behind the camera responds. I assume that it must have been mounted on his helmet or something. "Why the fuck do we have to film this?" The other SWAT shrugs his shoulders. "I don't make the fucking rules." Right after he says this, there was a distortion in the frame. Things became buggy for a second, before the video seemed to cut to a point where they were already in a building. The place looked like hell, dirty walls and floors inside a decaying foundation. I couldn't imagine it was actually a place anybody would actually live. There were about 7 of them, all climbing the stairwell. There was also a sound coming from nowhere obvious, although the source must have been one of the top floors. And that fucking sound, it's hard to even describe. Like some kind of high-pitched croaking, if you can even imagine that. The climbing goes on for a few minutes, before one of those distorted cuts happens again. This time, they're in a hallway, standing in front of a door. The croaking sound was deafening at this point. Something big must have been happening between the cuts, because there were only 4 of them now. One of them was even missing a hand. The man with the camera was desperately pounding and kicking at the door, but no matter how hard he tried, it simply wouldn't budge. Eventually, one of the other guys started screaming at the top of his lungs in what sounded like sheer frustration. He stood back, inserting an M203 in his rifle attachment. Everybody else followed suit and got out of the way. The video distorts again just as he's about to launch it. When we cut back, the man is on his knees, weeping erratically. The croaking sound is also still there, loud as ever. The camera pans and we see the door. Despite evident signs of an explosion taking place, it's still fully intact. The last few seconds of the clip consist of something breaking through the ceiling. An awfully long, dark red arm reaches down and picks up the weeping man, pulling him upwards. That's where it ended. I barely noticed the cold sweat dropping down my forearm. What the fuck was this? I got up and paced around, contemplating whether or not to stay, whether or not I was ready to keep watching. I really didn't want to. Inexplicably, though, it felt like I had to. But as it turns out, that decision wasn't up to me. I heard a loud bang coming from Jeff's door only a few moments ago. It was coming from the inside. I went over to take a look, but before I could even call out Jeff's name, another bang came through. This time, it made a crack. Another bang and there was a hole. For a brief moment, I got a glimpse of what had made it. And then I got the fuck out of there. I suppose you could call it a void with some kind of form. A solid shadow in the shape of a man. I would have been perfectly okay with not finding out anymore. But again, I don't think that decision is up to me. I took the laptop, but I don't know what that means for me. Like I said, I'm not getting out of this situation anytime soon.